the 70s. This guy came in 72 to 187 Gerard Street, and we served hand in hand. Could you please turn that down? Run for the Those of you who have seen 187 Gerard, you know that it's a very, very small building. And His Divine Grace came there in 1975. And it was just wall to wall packed with devotees. There wasn't any wiggle space in the temple. There were so many devotees there. And Srila Prabhupada gave the instruction, you should get a bigger temple. And so I'm not exactly sure. Did Prabhupada see this property? Did Prabhupada see this property? So in 75, they brought Srila Prabhupada here. He saw this temple church, and he said, if you will get this, it will be a great victory over Maya. And when His Divine Grace would give the encouragement and give the inspiration to His disciples, we just would do anything to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's instructions. It was a real family of loving Vaishnavas. Often devotees ask me, what was it like back in those beginning days? And I always respond, we were a family. And we cared for one another like family. And we loved one another like family members. And so Srila Prabhupada gave the instruction, and all of us, according to our capacity and our services which we had, we took it up to get 243 Avenue Road. It was a great effort to establish this temple as the residence of Shri Radha Gopinatha. And devotees were just performing Herculean tasks, going out on Sankirtan day and night in so many different ways, collecting funds. We did so many things. And then finally, we got the temple. And then the devotees came in and they started renovating the temple. And we were still living over at 187 Gerard. And I guess it must have been December, we started shifting everything over here. And we were totally incognito. None of the neighbors knew that the Hare Krishnas were moving in next door. And then in January, I guess it was January, we brought Radha Gopinatha over. It was freezing cold. It was so bitterly cold. And we had a wonderful festival here. In 1976 was the first year that I had the opportunity to go to India. And first place we went was Sri Bhajan. And on the first morning of the festival, we were all gathered around the staircase at the Lotus building in Sri Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada came out for his morning walk. And Srila Prabhupada was just beaming from ear to ear to see all of his disciples. He was so happy. And when he was walking down, I was standing next to the temple president. And Srila Prabhupada turned and he looked, and he said, "You've gone to the temple." And then Srila Prabhupada said, "There's a great victory." And then the temple president started explaining to him, the whole story about shifting over here and how we came incognito and we got into the temple. And then the neighbors, they found out that the Hare Krishnas had moved in. And for our poor neighbors at that time, having the Hare Krishnas live next door was like having Osama bin Laden live next door. They were just in total shock. And naturally, what they were thinking about was, "Oh, my property down here. I won't be able to ditch my house now because the Hare Krishnas are next door." And they were trying to do so many things to try to get us out. And one of the things is that we had very boisterous kirtans. We had very, very enlivening kirtans. Mangal Arti was something fantastic. So they started complaining, our temple president was explaining how they started complaining to the Toronto police that we were making too much noise too early in the morning. And so the Toronto police used to come periodically and they would set up like some sort of noise detectors outside to, detect the sound level. But being clever young devotees, we just, circumvented that by having somebody go out to the porch every morning and check if the police were out there. And if the police were out there, and if the sensors were up, we would have Mangal Arti like this. And everybody would be dancing, sweating, enthusiastic, no sound. And when Srila Prabhupada was hearing these stories, each time the temple president would add another layer of what had happened, Prabhupada's eyes would go. Like a little boy hearing a fantastic fable. He was just so innocent. And then finally the temple president finished speaking, and Prabhupada smiled and he said, "Yes, we are a very noisy religion." But that was 50 years ago, and by Sri Prabhupada's grace, and by Gopinatha's grace, and by the grace of our resident devotees here in Toronto, our Bhakti Swami Maharaj, our Mother Pramarna, Krishna Das Kaviraj, Sri Bhakti Bhas, things have just blossomed over the years. And Radha Gopinatha's temple is still here, and their worship is going on beautifully. And the Krishna conscious community is expanding all over Canada. And through I think you call it the Greater Toronto area, in the past year, they've opened many centers Krishna, and for the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, and being able to learn the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam as we've been instructed by Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas. So it's an honor for me to be here on this weekend and to see God brothers and God sisters that I haven't seen for many decades. A few years back, I don't know, before pandemic, I guess, I was sitting in my room in Vrindavan and Krishna came in. And I hadn't seen Krishna maybe in 40 years. We had a big blue bus and we traveled around Canada. Not only Canada, but we traveled in America also, doing Sankirtan. And he was our Sankirtan leader. We took a tour out west one year on that bus, and I think that from that one tour, 14 people became devotees. And these ladies over here, Mother Praharna, Churchor, Artishmati, Lokadusti. I was mentioning this morning when we were having our Gopinatha together. For us, they were like, you know, the queens of the earth at that time, because they were so dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. Like I asked this morning, when did we sleep back then? And no one could remember when we ever slept. It's like we just served and served and served, and then we, you know, crashed somewhere for a few hours, and then we all had to be up for Mangalarti and start doing it again. And we're always so happy. When we lived at Gerard Street, well, Gerard Street in here also, I was the happy cook. And we had so much service. We'd cook breakfast, we'd cook lunch, clean the kitchen, then go to Kensington Market or go to the Ontario Food Terminal and buy kitchen supplies, and then come back. And in the evening, I had Seva addressing Radha Gopinatha when we were in Gerard Street for some time. And we were like totally exhausted, but we were happy. And I can recall one time I went up to the brahmachari room at Gerard Street, and I just lay down on the floor, and it was like one of those experiences like when you're just going down even before you touch the floor. I felt like my soul was coming out of my body. And I went into like a deep coma, you know, I was so tired. And I was laying there on the floor like this. And when I woke up, somebody had placed like a tie on my neck. They put gloves on my hands. They had put some socks over my feet. They had done so many things. I think they put some flowers or something. And then on a piece of paper, they folded the paper, and on one side it just said, "Decorations for a dead body." But we were like that, and we were so happy, just serving this divine grace, serving Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, he's not Krishna, but he's like Krishna. Whereas in the Gita, Krishna says, Jai Chitamam Prabhajanate Tangastataya Lokachanyam. Krishna explains, however they approach me, I reciprocate. And Srila Prabhupada always reciprocated with us. And still, he's reciprocating with us. And if you serve Iskcon, if you read Bhagavatam, if you read Gita, if you chant, if you serve anyway according to your Shakti, according to your ability, you can feel that reciprocation coming in His divine grace. So again, it's an honor to be with you, and without further ado, we'll chant Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.